Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I am thrilled, beyond thrilled, to bring on the two guests. We had talked about that we were going to talk about the history of Latin and jazz music, and who better to do that with? I would say the Conzo family. So let's start off and say good evening to my buddy Joe Conzo Jr. and my brand new friend Joe Conzo Sr. Nice to see both of you. Welcome to
Likewise.
the Bronx Buzz. Joe Jr., let's just start with you since you're here. A check-in. You're one of I call you the hip hop photographer. You've been taking any pictures? You've been hanging out. What have you been doing? And Rebecca can show some of for people who don't know what we're really dealing with here. Let's just show us a couple of your iconic photos.
Thank you.
So tell me what you've been working on. What's going
So,
on?
listen, I'm staying busy as much as I can in this pandemic, being selective in what I'm shooting, but I'm still shooting and getting out and about when I can. There's a bunch of concerts coming up at Lehman Center, and I'm looking forward to shooting those.
Is Rebecca? Let's just show some of the old photos. Is the process? There's Tito Puente, of course. Is the process of doing these, of taking these photos? There's Matt Dillon with Pops,
Yeah,
and is the process, and this, of course, is an iconic of Celia Cruz and Tito Puente. My
yeah,
goodness, and moving it up a little more modern, so to speak. And here
true.
is Nas and LL Cool J. Is the process of doing it, taking the pictures at concerts and of Bronx music any different than it was way back when?
Oh, it's changed a lot.
Really?
You know, back in when I was the young teenager taking those iconic photographs, I was just a handful of people photographing what was going on. Now you have to like fight and juggle with other photographers for
And
events.
they don't even know who you are.
And
That's not
listen,
fair.
it is what it is.
I know, and you're a humble guy who has really archived some of the most important parts of our Bronx culture. I was vaguely aware, but somewhat unaware, that you got your artistic bent from your father. And so we'll say Joe Conzo Jr., Sr. Nice to meet you. The
Likewise.
foremost, let's introduce you formally, the foremost Latin music historian in the country, also a teacher, professor at Hostos Community College, author of the book about Tito Puente. He has also appeared in films, Carlito's Way with Al Pacino, Mambo Kings with Armando Sante. So nice to meet you. First of all,
Likewise.
thank you for continuing to inspire your son because we need his work. But talk to me a little bit about the history of Latin music and Latin jazz that you're beginning to teach, and that's why you're here to invite people to come and learn. So tell me a little bit about that.
I think it's very, very important to our culture, which is the most important thing that is lacking throughout the Hispanic community. Uh, if you ask some of these kids today who Tito Puente was, they'll look at you. You have to refer Santana and say, you know Santana? Oh, yeah. And then when you say the tune, Oye Como Va, they say, oh, I know that tune. Then you got to tell them Tito Puente was the composer.
That
And
that it makes a lot of sense, and of course we talk about culture all the time and the importance of it and how rich we are in the Bronx. I'm going to ask you actually the same question in a way what I asked Joe Jr. Talk to me about past versus present. Is understanding, I mean, those roots. Tell us a little bit about what it was like, covering this stuff and following this stuff and living, Latin jazz
well,
all those years way
well,
back when in the Bronx.
well, not only in the Bronx, but throughout New York City. I mean, you had the Palladium, which was notorious, known as the home of the mambo. You had the Hunts Point Palace in the Bronx. You had the Embassy Ballroom. Most important, you had the radio. The radio does not play this music
That's
anymore.
right. That's right.
You know, you can take the subway and go to any club in the city of New York. The Bronx was notorious for a lot of clubs. You
So
know,
so when you do what you're about to do and teach, the history of Latin music and Latin jazz, do you find that modern students They're doing it, "Well, I need 3 credits, so I'm taking the class," kind of thing? Or do they really embrace it and say, "This is my culture, now I understand it"? I mean, how does it
It
work in
varies. It
it
varies.
varies.
I got an older crowd, and as far as students are concerned, when I did it in person, the older folks would bring their children. Because of the pandemic, we're doing everything now on Zoom. Everything is
Right,
virtual. But what I love about the virtual is that I can get people, which I have, from Colombia, South America, from Peru, and Boston, Puerto Rico. So I get a bigger audience.
right.
And
And listen, I understand that as well, obviously, because of what we do. Sometimes I have to tell you, if as much as I like the reach, I find it a little more challenging because it's not quite as easy to, connect. So, let's put up this.
Gary, let me just interject here.
Please do, of course.
This is, and Dad, correct me if I'm wrong. This is your 10th year.
10th year.
How long have you been teaching at Ostos?
almost 15 years, 15 sessions.
You better get your math together, young man.
Hey, I don't know what the number is. XV1. How much is that? 16 years.
16.
16 years.
All right, there you go. So it's the 16th year. So here
we
it
go.
is. Now, and what do you do now? Do you, especially virtually, you show videos, you play music?
I show videos, and what I love is that we have a Q&A session, and they'll ask me, who is that musician, who is that singer, and because you get them from the video. That's another thing. There's very few videos available, so I go into the books, and
Um,
I have a vast library of videos. I'll show a video of Miguelito Valdez, and people will say, "Who's that?" I said, "Well, that's the original Babalu, not Desi Arnaz." and
do you in Espanol? You and don't start talking Spanish because my Spanish is
no, I
unfortunately not
talk
that
in
good.
Spanish when I have to. I speak I speak in English. I teach in English, but I talk.
Okay.
I do both languages. It doesn't
When you teach, what is the one thing that blows people's mind? Maybe aside from the fact that Oye Como Va really was Tito
I'll
Puente.
tell you one.
Go ahead, go for it.
I'll tell you one. Now, I'm known for my hip hop photography. So my dad taught me something that I never knew,
Here you go.
that Tito Puente, the king of Latin music, played on Sugar Hill Gang's first album. And I wish I would have sent
Really?
you a picture of it, but if you look at the album cover, the Sugar Hill Gang's album cover, it says special appearance by Tito Puente.
And he played some rhythm track on there.
So he was
It's
a guest,
called Sugar Hill Groove.
and
He,
he made a special appearance on hip hop's first album.
I,
He was the first Latin music star to ever appear on a hip hop album.
so this brings up another thing because we're talking about kind of the merging of two Bronx cultures. Has the music changed? And certainly when you think about if it comes from the same people who invented hip hop or some of the same people, is there a merging of it as you get to as you get to this day and age?
Listen, hip hop as a whole has, I mean, we made it to the Super Bowl last night,
That's right.
Super Bowl halftime. And, as much as you can applaud that, hip hop has traveled across the country, across the world. I'm happy to have seen and borne witness to it. But, hip hop takes from all genres of
And
music.
and I'm gonna go in the other direction because a lot of times when I hear dance music and I hear club music, it has an absolute undercurrent of a Latin beat, and I see that all the time. So, Joe Senior, do you find that it's kind of energized or allow people to reinterpret Latin jazz a little bit?
Well, that's not Latin jazz, that's hip hop.
Ah,
But it
I'm
does,
trying, man. I'm
it
trying.
does, it does, Gary, it does have that under, you know, the clave is pa 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 pa, and that's three, 1 2 3 2 2 2 1 2.
Right.
You had that Santana when he did his fusion. He was one of the few people that started that,
That's
and
right.
then it went on and on and on. Tito was one of the few musicians in the world that could adjust to any type of rhythm. because he knew it. He knew how to adjust, and he was an iconic figure,
And
like
he under he
percussion,
un-
percussionist.
he
And he
yes, of
played
course, and he understood all of the
all
connectivities.
when they
I
looked at. I was there when the Sugar Hill Gang, when they looked at this old man, they said, "Who's this
They
guy?"
said he could rock. Listen, before we run out of time, I want to talk about we have something coming up at not only the classes, which we'll put up before we end, but coming up at Lehman College that you're involved in. So why don't you talk about that,
Well,
Joe Sr.?
I'm the host for Lehman College. It's March 5th, and those are the three sons of Tito Rodriguez, Machito, and Tito Puente Jr. They're going to play the music of their fathers.
Wow.
Uh,
And,
uh,
and, and
and I'm
go
one of
ahead.
the few people alive on this planet that knew all three of them.
Knew them when they were this big, right? That's
I used to cross the street.
but you see, this to me is so rich and so healthy for the borough of the Bronx because we are, merging not only cultures but generations, showing continuity. I mean, this
That's the
I
most
say this to
important thing.
go
And
ahead.
I agree with you, Gary. It's very
Mhm.
important.
It's very important. Listen, let's just quickly put up the schedule of classes. How do people get in touch with you in
Uh,
order to participate in this really wonderful
well,
virtual series?
there's a Zoom link which I don't have in front of me,
All
but
right.
it's on Facebook, and Hostos College has their own link.
Got it.
You can
Joe Jr., can you just articulate how people should find that link
Just go to Ostos Community College, click on
on
events
Facebook or their website?
or their website, and
Got it.
click on
Okay.
events, and you can join the classes virtually
and
for
it's
free.
free, and it's from 11 to 1, and you could
On
join at
Saturdays.
4 o'clock.
All right. We got to run. This is for me has been an absolute pleasure. Two of the great people of the Bronx, and they happen to be father and son, Joe Conzo Jr., Joe Conzo Sr. So thanks so much. I mean, it's just wonderful for everything all the time. And let's get everybody to sign up for the classes. Tell everybody about it. Onward and upward. So that'll do it for the Bronx Buzz. Thank to our buddy Zach Williams from calling in from the state capitol, as a matter of fact. And then, of course, for these two guys who are just absolutely fantastic, energizing our culture, which is, of course, how we're going to save the Bronx. You asked me, I told you. We'll see you next week. Good night.